Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Melting Snowflakes. I wanted this conversation today to be about Vladimir Putin and the propaganda as well as the misinformation that's being provided about Vladimir Putin. So I want to start out this video with a disclaimer that I do not think that Vladimir Putin is an angel or somebody that's without sin or altruistic by any means. However, I do not think that he is the all-encompassing threat that the media and our political elite tried to make him out to be. So, a couple of things. First of all, one of the main cries by the political party, our political party, and the media today, as far as demeaning Putin and his character and why we can't work with him as a political figure on the world stage, is his invasion of the Ukraine and Crimea. So I'll end up putting links below the video in the description so you can see the maps. But if you look at the maps of the pipelines for oil exportation, keeping in mind that right now and in the past, but current day, Russia's economy, about 40% of Russia's economy is based on exporting oil. So, as you can imagine, that is a massive amount of money that they rely on to maintain their nation state and their infrastructure. So 40% of their economy is based on their oil exports. Now, if you look at their pipelines, when you look at the map, I believe there's 10 total subdividing pipelines leading out to export points in the Black Sea and into Europe Major, as well as into Eurasia. But the majority of them are leading into the Black Sea. Now, all of the 8 of those pipelines, if you will, of those 10, run through the Ukraine. Okay? And in 2012, the European Union was lobbying the Ukraine to become a part of the European Union. In other words, envelop them into the European Union political structure and monetary system. Okay, and as part of that deal, they had to revamp their voting structure, their parliamentary structure, basically to align them after this restructuring to the EU and away from Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. Well, if you were a world leader and 40% of your economy depended on oil exports, 8 of the 10 major pipelines that you have to provide that export out to market in shipping seas to provide it and sell it are running through the Ukraine, do you think that you would allow that to happen? Do you think us as the United States would allow that to happen? If you do, you're sorely mistaken. The United States has done much worse in recent history, for far less than 40% of their economy. Okay? So, I want to make sure we put it in a context here. His invasion of the Ukraine and Crimea was a direct counter to the European Union and NATO structure trying to move in basically on his pipelines. Okay? And we would do it in a flat heartbeat. Like I said, if you think otherwise, you are delusional. Okay? The other major thing that everybody cries out about, that calling him a war criminal, is when Vladimir Putin first came into power in the mid-90s, he was having a major issue. The country was having a major issue. First of all, the Soviet Union fell, and the Russian Federation, which is what it is now today, was basically set up to fail, right? Hey, the deck was stacked against them. Their economy was in shambles. They were in debt up to their ears as a nation state. And above all that, and they had been stripped of weapons from arms dealing. So major portions of their arsenal have been sold off at cut rate prices. So their military had been greatly affected. Their economy had been demolished. and their political system had been ruined. Okay? Above all of that, they also had a major issue with fundamentalist Islam and terrorism in Kyrgyzstan. And it was becoming even more of a substantial destabilizing issue. Well, in order to, drastic times calls for drastic measures, right? So at that point in Kyrgyzstan, the Islamic faction, if you will, the fundamentalists, had taken a stronghold, kind of like what you're seeing nowadays with ISIS and the caliphate in Raqqa and Mosul and all these areas. So Vladimir Putin used the military might of his Air Force to basically bomb them into the Stone Age. Ruthlessly, I will admit that. But keep in mind, his small arms had been reduced to almost nothing, and his standing army had been reduced to almost nothing. So the major tool that he had as a national power, still left and intact, was his air power. So he used it to great effect, I might add. Well, during this process, this campaign, it lasted about 3 to 4 months, if memory serves. He had a bunch of international reporters come in and interview. They were chastising him about, collateral damage. There's always collateral damage in war. Keeping in mind, the terrorists were inflicting a lot of collateral damage, but they don't bring that up. So they were basically chastising him on the fact that he was killing children and women and so forth, and civilians were getting killed in the conflict, which I don't condone, but you have to understand the context. And his response was something along the effect was, I don't care where the terrorists are. I don't care if the terrorists are sitting on their toilet doing their business. If that's where they are, I will bomb them off the face of this planet. Okay, so he was very, very straightforward in his thinking in this. Well, within 3 months, this fundamentalist Islamic uprising was completely demolished. Okay, and the ranging estimates, there's no way to know, but supposedly anywhere from 50,000 to 300,000 people died in this bombing campaign. Okay, there's no way to really tell. There's no way to get accurate numbers, but that's what they say. A lot of that being the Islamic fundamentalists and terrorist armies that were forming within Kazakhstan. But a lot of that was the civilians as well. But he stopped it cold in a 3 to 4 month campaign. Now, that sounds horrific, but think about 15 years later, if that was still going on, how many more people would the terrorists have affected in a mass scale? Just look at Mosul. Look at the hundreds of thousands of people that die every year from the caliphate and the Islamic State. 15 years of that, the numbers would be pretty catastrophic, wouldn't they? So, on a humanitarian level, there's a very strong argument that he saved lives. Yes, he took lives, but because through his measures, he saved lives. So, through this context and this dialogue, this supposed moral high ground, they call him a war criminal. Well, guess what, people? We invaded a sovereign nation of Iraq, claiming that they had weapons of mass destruction, and we never found weapons of mass destruction. So you have to understand, Putin is a nationalist. The only reason the Russian Federation is still intact today and now reattaining its strength as a superpower is because of that man and his commitment to his country. It's the only reason. So beyond that, the society itself, as far as the Russian people, they are an Orthodox Christian, majority Orthodox Christian culture. They're multicultural. I mean, they allow people of the Islamic faith, Buddhists, whatever, but they are a majority Judeo-Christian based culture that shares a lot of the same values that Israel does and we do. They're not necessarily as much a democratic state as we are, but nobody in the world is including Israel. Israel isn't on our same level either. One step further, in 2013, you can look it up on the internet. I'll look it up and I'll provide in the link. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, keeping in mind all the rhetoric, all the politicians, all the media say Israel is our biggest ally, right? In the Middle East, they're an indispensable ally, including Trump says it, right? Well, in 2013, what do you know? Benjamin Netanyahu and Putin met in a public display, and they both praised each other as honorable men and glad to be working with each other. So once again, if Putin is such a bad guy, why is one of our strongest allies able to work with him? You would think that if he was such a horrible guy, the state of Israel wouldn't work with him. Something to think about. And Benjamin Netanyahu is not like our politicians. He is much more like Putin in many ways, as far as his political stance and how he operates. So, wanted to throw this out there, give a little bit more context and reality to the situation. If any of you think I'm wrong, please feel free to prove me wrong. If I hit in this conversation, if I hit your ideals and your ideology can't see reason or any type of logic to my argument, I highly recommend you start doing some research on your own and look at it in a neutral fashion without emotions getting involved, and you may just start to see the reality of the situation. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Melting Snowflakes, and continue the conversation, like and subscribe, and so I can keep this going and keep you guys informed and hopefully continue to bring the reality of the world today and how it exists. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.